In 2013, a bunt single started a brawl so violent that fans in the stands were throwing bottles and baseballs at players' heads. Punches were thrown, guys were getting strangled. A coach said he looked into a guy's eyes and saw Satan. This wasn't some beer league game, this was the World Baseball Classic, Team Canada vs Mexico. To understand why this got so out of control, you need to know what was at stake. Canada had just gotten destroyed 14-4 by Italy the day before and was on the edge of elimination. Mexico had upset Team USA and was riding high. Both teams were desperate. Winner stays alive, loser goes home. Canada came out swinging in the first inning. 4 runs on 5 straight hits. Michael Saunders and Justin Morneau were locked in. By the middle innings, Canada was up big, and that's when things started getting chippy. In the first, Robinson broke up a double play with a hard slide that took out Mexico's shortstop. In the fourth inning, Mexico's Karim Garcia tried to score from second on a collision at home plate with Canadian catcher Chris Robinson. Garcia was hurt on the play and had to leave the game. That didn't help the mood. Robinson would try another slide in the 7th, and Canada scored a run on the play and went up 7-3. By now, Mexico was pretty pissed, but there's one more thing you need to understand before we get to the brawl, and this is the whole key to the story. The World Baseball Classic in 2013 used a run differential as a tiebreaker to decide which teams advance to the next round. That means even if you're winning 9-3 in the 9th inning, you have every reason to keep scoring. More runs could be the difference between moving on or going home. Canada knew this, they understood the math, and that's why in the top of the 9th inning with the 6-run lead, catcher Chris Robinson laid down a bunt single. To Canada it was smart baseball, but to Mexico it was disrespectful, and what happened next turned the game into a war zone. After Robinson bunted, Mexico's third baseman Luis Cruz made a gesture to pitcher Arnold Leon to hit the next batter, and after 2 inside pitches, the ump warned both benches. But Leon didn't care. He drilled to Sony right in the back. Sony dropped his bat and started walking to the mound. The benches emptied, and this is where it goes from baseball scrum to an actual fight. Luis Cruz threw a punch at Canada's Scott Matheson, and that's when the whole thing splintered into multiple fights happening at once. Mexico's pitcher Alfredo Aceves was tackled to the ground by Canadian outfielder Tyson Gillies. Aceves obviously took exception to that because he goes right after him. Canada's Jay Johnson was trading punches with Eduardo Arredondo before getting wrestled to the ground and then getting strangled from behind to stop the fight. I mean, there were like 5 different fights going on at the same time. It was insane. Canadian first base coach Larry Walker, Hall of Famer and one of the most respected guys in the game, later said he had a hold of Aceves during the brawl and thought he saw Satan in his eyes. That's a Hall of Fame player saying he was genuinely unsettled by what he saw. But here's where it gets even worse. The fight spilled into the stands. Fans were throwing water bottles and baseballs at the Canadian team. A loaded plastic bottle hit Canada's pitching coach Dennis Boucher. Shortstop Cale Lorick picked it up and whipped it back into the stands. Then when the dust finally settled and play had resumed, someone from the crowd threw a baseball that nearly hit Larry Walker in the head. Canadian manager Ernie Witt would tell the umpires if one more thing came out of the stands, he was pulling his team off the field. And I think that would have been the right move. When it was all over, 6 players were ejected: Leon, Aceves, Arredondo from Mexico, Tassoni, P. Orr, and Jay Johnson from Canada. Canada won 10-3, and Mexico was eliminated from the tournament. After the game, both managers blamed the same thing, the run differential rule. Mexico's manager Rick Renteria called it a misunderstanding, saying that in a normal professional baseball game, bunting with a 9-3 lead in the 9th would be completely out of line. Canadian manager Ernie Witt fired back, saying that in the World Baseball Classic, you have to play with the score 0-0 at any time because of how the tiebreaker works. Every run matters and every at-bat matters. Chris Robinson, the guy who laid down the bunt that started all of this, said he felt terrible about getting his teammate hit, but he also said this wasn't like a hockey fight where 2 guys square up and drop the gloves. You had to keep your head on a swivel because people were coming at you from all directions. Canada would go on to lose to Team USA the next day and would be eliminated, but this brawl became the defining image of the entire 2013 World Baseball Classic. Here's my take on it. Mexico was right to be pissed. In any normal baseball context, bunting up 6 runs in the 9th inning is a Bush League move. But the WBC invented a rule that completely breaks baseball's unwritten code. You're supposed to keep running up the score even when the game's already decided because your run differential might determine if you advance. That's not Canada's fault. They were playing by the rules the tournament created. But it's also not Mexico's fault for feeling disrespected. The World Baseball Classic put these teams in an impossible situation where following the rules meant violating the culture of the game. And that's why this brawl happened, not because of one bad pitch or one dirty slide, but because the tournament created a system where sportsmanship and strategy were in direct conflict. When you ask players to represent their countries and then tell them the only way to advance is to humiliate the opponent, eventually someone's going to throw a punch. Which side do you think was right? Was Canada just playing smart baseball or did they cross a line? Let me know in the comments, and let me know who you think will win the 2026 World Baseball Classic. I'm Dingers and Doubles, and I'll see you in the next one.